Hey, it's Willie Armelini from Flowers and Scents with your floral industry buzz. Today, we're going to interview Kevin McCarthy. Kevin is the president and COO of the McCarthy Group, now known as Family Flowers. They have 23 retail locations in 10 states in the U.S., and it's going to be good to hear from their retail perspective how they're managing this tight market. So, without further ado, Kevin McCarthy. Record. So Kevin McCarthy of Family Flowers, also known as the McCarthy Group, I guess.
That's right. Yep. Formerly McCarthy Group Florist, now Family Flowers. That's right.
I love the name
Thank you.
for a couple of reasons. It's very personable. And it was started in 1952, according to your website.
That's exactly right.
Which makes it as old as me.
Yep, my grandfather started it in Scranton in 1952.
Wow, yeah. So yeah, 68 years we've been around. So that's a good testimony. Um, I interviewed Kennecott yesterday, and they've been in business 140 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
As a wholesale florist, amazing, growing and whatever. So I'm happy to see. And one of the questions I'm going to ask you, which I think I'll save for a little bit, is what's it like being in a family business as somebody with the same last name?
Sure.
I sort of know the answer to that, but I'd be curious to hear your perspective. But let's jump right into it. Okay, here we are, almost at Easter, Mother's Day looming around the corner. Flowers are hard to get, expensive. What is going on? I mean, I know what's going on. I've been sort of reporting on it, of course, but
Sure.
So I'm curious from a retailer's perspective, how you feeling it?
Well, it's a big challenge, to be honest with you. I don't think in our company's history we've ever seen anything quite like this with the supply chain difficulties. Obviously, as you reported on, I mean, between COVID, the weather problems that are going on down there, other supply chain issues, and South American issues with the weather, and it's really created kind of the perfect storm of issues. So the prices have gone up. We did a quick analysis the other day. On some of our most, used products, they've shot up, about like 36%, on average from what we're paying before. And, some are more, some are less, but that's the kind of average of averages, which is a huge amount. And the problem is that you have a really difficult, tight market and you're having trouble getting what you want. And even if you can get it, you're paying a fortune for it, as you alluded to. So what do you do in that scenario? You either have the customer receive less, which we don't like, or you have to bump up your prices a little bit, or you lose a little bit. We've kind of done the latter two, where we're taking a little bit of a hit on the profitability. We're raising prices a little bit, but we're trying to give the best bang for the buck for the customers. So we're trying to give the most show for the dough as best we can. We hate raising prices on consumers, especially during things like this. Normally we don't, but we think this is a longer term issue than just something that's, market fluctuation over a couple weeks. It's probably going to be longer. Hopefully it'll soften up after Mother's Day, but right now it's been a challenge. So we're pushing designer's choice as much as we can for customers, so we can put in items, that we can not only get, but also things that we know will give them the best value. So we don't have to do as many substitutions, which, people generally don't like as the internet orders get more and more, prevalent these days. So I think that's a big one. We've done a slight increase on certain items of prices, but certainly not nearly to the extent of the, much more that we're paying now to get product in. And we're trying our best to average down on the prices between our standing orders and what we have to pay now just to get things. So I think standing orders are going to become more and more important, right now, especially to kind of average your cost down. So if it's, 50 cents and your standing order is 25 cents, you're somewhere in the middle there, which is helpful. And you're going to have to kind of take a hit because customers can't take that big increase all at once. So we try to lean them and push them towards, certain items that we have better margins on, that we have better multiples on, things that you get more value for as best you can, so that they don't feel like they're getting, a cheaper arrangement or less full arrangement or something like that. So it's a tough balance.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I really want to talk to some retail people, because again, you're sort of where the rubber meets the road, is to quote an old trucking term. But anyway, your prices are not so elastic, I guess. You can't just raise prices because somebody went up 20% on you. You're going to raise yours.
Right.
And I've been wondering, because I deal a lot, as you well know, with the importers and growers, and everybody else on that the grand scheme of things in the growing side. And everybody's happy because, well, not everybody's happy. But if you have product, you're happy. But
Sure,
in
sure.
general, the importers are like, yeah, we're making our margins, and
Right,
the growers are like, yeah, I can sell anything I can grow, and
right.
put it in a box, people are going to buy it, and I get holiday prices. And I'm wondering, man, but the retailer is the one who's somewhat stuck with this because you're very inelastic, I guess.
Consumers, generally speaking, and it does vary as you know by the market, right? There are some consumers who are less price sensitive than others in certain demographics, certain areas of the country where they're used to paying more. Our New York customers are used to paying a higher price than, for instance, our Scranton, Pennsylvania, or Omaha customers in Nebraska. So there are some people who are used to that. So we're also adding new products and things like that that still give as good a show for the dough, as I say, before, so that consumers feel like they're getting a good value, which we try to provide. But it's very difficult to do that because it's not easy to change your prices, and people notice, even though they only buy a few times a year, the average customer, there's a lot of alternatives that are out there between the online retailers, the grocery stores now, and all the other competitors that you have. So it becomes a real issue. So we're trying to balance it as best we can. We did, reluctantly do a small increase on about a basket of 400 products, just to try to balance it out. And we still run promotions and sales, and we try to, push down I push out new products all the time to give consumers different options, things that we're not paying as much for that they're still happy with. But at the end of the day, when you're facing that customer, they have to be happy. You have to give them something that they're satisfied with, that they feel like they're getting the value for, because there are alternatives out there, and not just even within the floral industry, but now with same day and next day gifting all around the country through different means, whether it's Amazon or Best Buy or whatever it may be, any other gift company that's out there. So we have to continue to stay, relevant in this day and age as best we can with the product that we really can't raise the price on too much because it's going to push consumers away.
Well, perhaps if you've been reading some of my writings, you know that also but bouquet makers are sort of gobbling up growers
Yes.
left and right.
Yep.
Seems like every day I get somebody saying, "Hey, did you hear they bought this one or bought that one?" And that, of course, is drawing flowers out of the normal availability via wholesalers or just open market pricing. So out of curiosity, so today, what are you looking for today you can't find? Is it down? There's a lot of products out there. It's just not the ones you want,
Yeah.
or the colors you
It's
want.
true. We're surprisingly having trouble with things as simple as like mini carnations, right? And some of the things we have there for certain arrangements that we have. Yellow roses sometimes, on the short yellow rose side, just some odd specific odds and ends, but really it kind of varies, week to week. And we're trying to keep an adaptability kind of schedule week to week. And I talk with our great, buy team who talks to all the growers, that we work with, and a bunch of importers, and we try to figure out, what can we get, what can't we get, and how do we change it, for that reason. But you're right, from the standpoint of the bouquet, makers that are out there, they are gobbling up different farms. You're having these big chains and, grocery stores and other, places that are doing pre-mades and chop and drops, as they're called, as you know, and we're having less trouble getting those than a lot of the products that are in them, right? And a lot of the components that they're made up of. And so that's kind of an interesting state to be in right now. So we have gotten some of those for some direct to ship customers and things like that, but it's something we try to steer clear of. At the same time, you need to remain, adaptable to that. And when you're seeing the market change, and basically the prioritization of many of these people right now is these big, huge accounts that they have between grocery stores and other large chains. You have to say, well, what can I do about this? What can I adapt, and sell differently, even if I'm not getting it, so can I get something different, or do I just bite the bullet, pay more, and try to make it work?
Yeah, that's a tough decision. Okay, so I got a question for Rico that has always been bugging me.
Sure.
All right, so the bouquet makers, they need that production because they've quoted out probably 6 months in advance. They've quoted the price to their supermarket, and they're stuck with that.
Yeah.
And they average that out of what production they do have, perhaps, that they control, and what they sort of guess the market's going to be, and then they sort of, that's where the price comes from, I guess. And suddenly now, the prices go up on the bulk product, so they're out there scrambling, probably losing margins in many cases because they've committed. So what is the temptation for your average little retailer to run to the supermarket, buy these underpriced flowers and make bouquets or make arrangements out of
That's a good question. It's not something that we do, often and we, really at all, but frankly, it's getting more and more competitive. I was just looking and talking to some other florists who are local, who are doing that. They're running out and they're running to the grocery store and grabbing up a bunch of their bouquets because they can get the products cheaper there than they can, even if they're importing on their own, which is the case. You run to some of these grocery stores, and when you think about that, it's really crazy because these grocery stores, they use them as loss leaders in many cases. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? If you can come and go to the store and create something beautiful out of what you've gotten from a grocery store, that's great. It's unfortunate that we're in the position where, a retailer would have to pay, retail to be able to actually do this. But it's not something we've done really. We do provide to some, grocery stores, even ourselves. But we try to get some of these pre-mades if we have to, and even disassemble and put some different things together ourselves as a way of pricing down. It's not something we do a lot of, but I have heard about more and more retailers doing that, especially the mom and pop shops, because how are you supposed to get it? The wholesalers don't have the availability in many cases, and you just sometimes can't even get it for the price that they're at. I mean, I walk by, all these grocery stores every day. I'm like, how are they selling it at this price? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, 2 for 10 and stuff like that.
Exactly.
All this stuff. And yeah, I was in, Costco the other day, and I see people walking out, with 20 bouquets, So,
Yeah. Yep. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're going out to resell them somewhere. So.
Of course, it makes sense, of course. And so, what percentage since COVID, for instance, since we'll go there a little bit, has your market shifted online, or were you really strong online before, or what?
That's a great question. I would say we were growing our online basis pretty well. We were doing a good job. We had kind of started late in the game and really only started pushing into the online, maybe 10 years ago, a lot later than a lot of other florists, had really started getting on. Some of the earlier adapters to the online and really pushing that did a phenomenal job of it. And luckily with our team, we've built up a great reputation online, which is more important now than ever, especially during COVID. But now we've seen our percentages shift, and they vary throughout the country, because we have stores in 10 states. So we'll have some that are maybe 25% of online business, and we have some stores that are almost 50% online business. So there's really quite a variation. And I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, including the demographics of what you're doing. But we have seen massive increases, like most florists, in terms of our online business. And that's why I think the continued focus needs to be online as much as possible, because we are getting, more orders from there, newer customers. You've got to keep those reviews, doing really well. That helps boost your SEO. You've got to stay on top of SEO. Don't, go crazy with Google AdWords or anything like that. Right. And stay up to date with the newest Google trends, primarily. But make new products on there, rotate the products out, have your own custom things, because we've seen it now many months increase 100 plus percent online, year over year, which, is growth that's really large considering the established, growth we've already had online. So we have a great web team that we've, developed, that come up with fun and creative ideas, and we're thrilled that we're seeing that. But we are obviously seeing less walk-in during COVID as well. So it's making up certainly for that, but, and we get some phone calls, and I think SAF did a study a while back. I may be misquoting it, but I think they said up to maybe 70% of callers may be looking at your website or online at the same time. So that's why, even if they're not on your site or they're not ordering from your site, it's incredibly important to keep that up to date as best as you can. So we've seen a tremendous increase online.
I suppose I should have asked this question to begin with, but okay. So the McCarthy Group and family flowers, you're in, you just said 10 states. How many locations do you have?
10 states. So right now we have over 20 active locations, almost 25, and throughout 10 states. We found during COVID, with the changes in walk-in, that some of our smaller locations could be merged with our larger stores in those markets because of the walk-in changes, and it's actually worked out quite well for us. We've actually, in many cases, created some synergies and some economies of scale that we didn't know we could have, and we've increased our radius of delivery from that one area with those synergies. So it's kind of been interesting. I think it's less now about the hub and spoke model in most markets, and more about having that online presence and the brand reputation, because the walk-in has decreased in most markets. I think we were seeing it come back a little bit, especially in the Southeast. But yeah, we have about 23 active locations right now, and we're hoping for more in the near future. We continue
And
to
these
look
are
for
brick and mortar stores?
Yes, that's correct. Yep, full service brick and mortar locations in those states. That's right.
Hmm. Wow. All right, so let's go back to this other question about being in a family business. You know, I'm
Sure.
a member of a family business. I
Absolutely.
departed many years ago and went on my own little journey here or there, for better or for worse. But you know, here I am, and it's not an easy thing to do, particularly when you have a large family and a lot of people with the same last name. You know, trying to vie for the same positions, not or at
Right.
least the same, yeah, in some cases the same positions.
Sure. No, it's a very interesting dynamic, and as we both know, the floral industry is, it's known for being a very family-oriented business, right? And hence our very name that we've rebranded to, right? Family Flowers, which is what it is. It is a family business. It's a legacy for me as actually a fourth generation florist, because my great grandfather helped my grandfather, and my whole family is very actively involved in the business, between my mother and father, who are still working, very hard in it and continue to run and operate the business, to myself, who, tries to do what I can to help things and run everything else day to day, as well as my sister, who runs our entire social media platform for the 23, brick and mortar locations we have, as well as, other marketing, like email marketing and things like that. So it's rather interesting, to have that kind of family dynamic, because certainly there are times where you butt heads over certain things, and there's got to be that dynamic and understanding and mutual respect for what's not only been done and been accomplished, but also what could be done. And I think finding that middle ground is really important. We continue to try to innovate, and I'll say this, if we have a 300 batting average, I'll be happy with that, right? With new things to try. If you get enough of those home runs, it's okay, right? Not everything you do or try is going to work, but as in this business, in a family business, you're going to have interesting dynamics. I don't really have anyone vying for my role in the company, at this point. My sister has her own business as well, that she's, doing very well at, and she, does a great job with. But it's a legacy for us, and it's important to us. So we try to sit down every week as a family and talk about what is our vision, how can we progress this week. And sometimes they get heated, sometimes we have some fun exchanges, but I think we learn a little bit from each other every time, and we've kind of come up with a pretty good dynamic of how to make that work right now.
And all based in Scranton.
Yeah, originally based in Scranton, and we moved down to the Atlanta area, where we are now, and so we're now based out of Atlanta as kind of unofficial headquarters for us, where my entire family are. My sister, myself, and my parents all live within about a mile of each other. So
Okay, you all moved to Atlanta. Okay.
there you go. Exactly. Yep.
Mhm.
It's a good way for us to travel to all the stores out of the Atlanta airport. So, which we're not doing much traveling during COVID, but it's an easy way to travel.
Yeah, yeah. Well, being around a big airport, if you travel, is vital. I'm now in Orlando,
Exactly.
so I have good, because of Mickey, I have good access to it when I want to go anywhere. As soon as I get some vaccines here, I'll
Sure.
get out of town. Um, hey, so it's a big business. It's a lot of work. It's
It's certainly a lot of work. I'll give you that. Yes.
a lot of work. Uh, And luckily, we're in a business that we found out people really need. They want flowers, and
Yeah.
I think this is a good evidence of that. This strong demand we're having,
Yeah.
at the same time when we're having some shortages. We're all used to dealing with, like you said earlier, we're basically there's been an overproduction. You could always get the flowers
Right.
pretty much what you want when you wanted them, and maybe not at the price you wanted them, but you could get them.
Right. Right. You're
Now
right.
it's sort of flipped on its head a little bit, but so COVID been some positive sides, I heard.
There's been some positives and certainly some negatives too. I think, so many different industries have been affected through this. I think we've been one of the luckier industries, coming through and going through COVID in general, terms, not without myriad challenges that have happened. But, at the beginning, March and April, of last year, we had no idea what was going to happen. People went into panic mode. All kinds of orders got canceled, weddings, everything you can imagine. And that continued through most of last year. Luckily most of our business is every day. But we saw some huge decline in demand. We didn't know what was going to occur. And then Mother's Day hit. And I think for a lot of florists, we saw a huge spike in those, in those orders that, Mother's Day, one that we didn't really anticipate how big it was going to be. I mean, we had production so much that we had to shut down orders for a lot of our stores, which usually we're prepared enough to be able to take them, as long as possible through, 5 p.m. on some Mother's Day Sunday.
Yeah,
but
that's not something you want to do is turn off the cash register. Yeah.
Exactly. So, that's always difficult for us to do. But at the same time, we saw that. And then, now we've continued to see demand, I think, again, obviously, because a lot of people can't be with the people they love. They're looking for different, ways to communicate their feelings for people and brighten their day through flowers. Our motto is deliver love, right? Which we believe we do through each arrangement and each plant we sell. And we try to make that, kind of our message. And we think we've been able to help do that through this time. The key now, though, is seeing all these new customers come in who have resurged to a local level and also to new national brands and things like that. But now new local customers coming in, how do you continue to retain those customers as COVID subsides? How do you make them lifelong frequent buyers? And that's going to be the key going forward in the years to come, I think.
You're right. All right, last question, not a loaded question, but okay.
Sure.
So FTD blew up and somehow landed on its feet, I guess. I don't know, or at least it's still there.
Sure.
So I often wonder, Teleflora and FTD and 1-800, I don't know that they all should be put in the same box, but perhaps.
Sure.
Are they still relevant? Is that still a big deal?
That's the million-dollar question, Willie. We feel that, like florists, the wire services have to continue to innovate and adapt to the environment, right? There were 30,000 florists back in the mid-90s, maybe 13,000 some odd today, based on some estimates, some vary a little bit. Things have changed quite a bit for how things are, working, and it's changed quite a bit for the wire services over the years. We're seeing a lot more people focus on the local orders as opposed to those wire service, orders. We see and talk to some shops who are getting 90% incoming orders, and that's what their business is based off of. We talk to some shops who do no incoming these days. So I think there's ways you can, you could do it both ways. We still believe that there is a place right now for certain, I think, wire services that will continue to innovate and partner with the florist, whether it be from the point of sale system, from the credit card processing, the websites. I think there's the needs for that. Those who continue to innovate and work with the florist and not try to, price gouge, I think that's where you're going to find, the best results, because those businesses have to continue to adapt as we have. And they're continuing to market and get, combined billions of dollars of orders that they have to send somewhere. So, and a lot of florists do take them. So I say, if you can make money on the order, as long as it's not from someone like, a certain order gatherer you don't want to, deal with, and you can do a good job of it, we do it. We don't do a whole lot of incoming business ourselves. We do a lot of florist to florist orders. And we think there is some relevance for partners who are continuing to innovate in this industry, for, wire services who continue to try to be at the forefront and put florists as partners, not just as a necessary, or maybe even unnecessary obligation, endpoint for their business. And I think that's a big deal.
No, that was very well politically said. Yeah, that was good.
Fair enough.
Hey, so again, these 20 minutes go really fast. I wanted really my listeners and readers and watchers, or whatever they are, my audience, I guess, to get a little perspective on the retail side, because I've been looking at the other ends a lot. So I wanted to drill down a little bit, because again, you're where you're selling to the people, to the public. So it's important, your knowledge and your expertise here. So I thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing you someday in the flesh here.
I hope it's very soon. It's been too long. And thank you again. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye.